What was the media trying to sell you last night and this morning? Well, we'll go through all that. But thanks for hanging out with me. Hey, it's Friday. Welcome to Friday. Thanks for hanging out with me, Bill, your friendly neighborhood media critic, and Wicked Radio, the live stream, and then the replay, and then the audio podcast, wherever you like to find them, and all that good stuff. There's a lot to talk about today. Some of it is just absolutely fascinating, at least to me, obviously. Yes, we're going to talk about the NFL draft. We'll wrap it up today with that. It's huge, as always. You may not like sports or the NFL. You may not like media sports. I totally get that. Listen, I'm going to have to come to terms with the fact that the NFL rules the day. What a massive organization. It's even bigger than last year, at least according to night one of the draft. More importantly, the story that got absolutely almost no attention yesterday was downgrading the classification for marijuana, Mary Jane, the devil's lettuce, by President Trump yesterday. This is a massively huge story, and it got almost no media coverage. Now, you have to ask yourself why. Is that because the pharmaceutical companies are keeping the media organizations running? Because this directly affects them. Maybe. We'll talk about that. Speaking of media coverage, we'll spend not a lot of time because it's infuriating, I get it. But how did the media, the mainstream media, yesterday and last night cover the massive story of the Southern Poverty Law Center funding hate groups, that it's supposedly set to, cover when actually they were funding it? How did the media cover it? May surprise you a little bit on that one. And the most amazing story of this week so far to me, even bigger than that, was we have something that I've never even considered was a possibility. A special forces soldier involved in the Maduro raid, remember Venezuela, was betting on it. He actually betting on it. So now he's been arrested and charged. They don't know what to do with this. But President Trump yesterday in the Oval Office, when he was presented with this information, asked a very relevant question, the exact same question I had. You'll hear it in a little bit. And it was this. Well, was he betting on us? I don't know. We'll get to all that. First of all, let's get right to it. All right. Big story yesterday that no one is talking about, and I think there's a reason why. It directly affects the pharmaceutical companies. Bad news for them, because if we get people off of narcotics and into an alternative painkiller, I'll say, they lose money, don't they? This was the news yesterday in the Oval Office. President Trump signing the executive order to declassify, in other words, downgrade marijuana. It was on at one point, this is God's honest truth, on the same level as heroin. Okay, you may not be a pot smoker. You may be listening to this going, well, I don't smoke pot, it doesn't affect me. Somebody near you does, or takes gummies. But more importantly than that, somebody near you may need some serious painkiller or some medication someday soon. And instead of going to pharmaceuticals, this may be an alternative. Here's the announcement from the president yesterday.
At the same time, the facts compel the federal government to recognize that marijuana can be legitimate in terms of medical applications when carefully administered. In some cases, this may include the use as a substitute for addictive and potentially lethal opioid painkillers. They cause tremendous problems. This can do it in a much lesser way, can make people.
And here's what else it does. And that was this is a long time coming. It's when he made the announcement that it was coming, signed the executive order yesterday, and it all happened. Here's what else it does. It opens up more research, because now if it's downgraded and it's just not put on the same level as heroin, research companies aren't afraid to put money into it. What else can we do about it? What else can we learn about it? How can we help people? Here was Bobby Kennedy yesterday, Health and Human Services Secretary in the Oval Office, talking about the importance of this. And this is why all of his, family members, Democrat donors, everybody turned on him. He's not afraid to give credit where credit is due.
We have 4.2% of the world's population. We take 13% of the pharmaceutical drug. We spend 80% of the biotechnology research in our country, and we provide 75% of the profits to the pharmaceutical industry. This is a ripoff that has irked him for 20 years.
That is true. Trump has talked about this when it was just, apprentice Trump, builder Trump, brand Trump. He's talked about this before. He's not new to it. Maybe he's not versed in all the inside details about what medical marijuana can do and, getting it off pharmaceuticals and all that other stuff. But he's questioned why it was ranked as high as narcotics before in the past. There's a reason why it was. Who are some of the biggest donors? Maybe not this year, but in the past. Pharmaceutical lobbyists have been some of the most powerful people in Washington, D.C. Gee, do you think maybe they had something to do with classifying marijuana as high as it was, like it was a narcotic? Yeah, you think so, maybe? And here's the other reason why you didn't hear about this so much yesterday. Here's the media angle of this, which is where I jump in. Let's see. Why didn't the mainstream media outlets cover declassifying marijuana yesterday? Let me think about this for just a second. Okay. Could it be that it's the pharmaceutical industry and all their ads that are keeping mainstream media running, keeping them afloat, keeping them alive with a heartbeat? Look at every single show you watch on mainstream media networks. Pick one, whatever it is. Even some, cable-only outlets. What are all the commercials? 80% of them are pharmaceutical ads. And they all have that disclaimer that's absolutely horrifying and disgusting, right? At the end, it'll be like, this drug may have partial side effects, including a brain rot, your foot will fall off, oily discharge, suicidal tendencies. It's like, if you ever pay attention to the ads at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, who would be... Aren't they better off without the drug? That's why you didn't see this story covered. This is a direct threat to the pharmaceutical companies. Very interesting, but now you know about it. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have to cover it. How did those same media outlets cover the massive story of the indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center, a nonprofit, I'm using finger quotes here, audio-only listeners, a nonprofit that is set to target hate groups? Well, as it turns out, at least in the indictment, they found out that they were actually funding these hate groups. Because when there's not as much racism as you were told there was, you got to create some, right? That's exactly what they were doing, according to the indictment. How was it covered in those media outlets, those mainstream media outlets we love so much? Well, let's figure it out now. Let's go to it. How was it covered? This is fascinating.
And it was during a press conference that he made these comments, and it was a press conference to announce federal charges against a prominent civil rights organization.
One of the most prominent in the nation, the Justice Department accusing the Southern Poverty Law Center, Robin, of defrauding donors by secretly paying informants inside the Ku Klux Klan. And
that's NBC. Typical coverage. They didn't talk about the details, right? They didn't talk about all the different ins and outs. Excuse me, that was ABC. I'm sorry. That was Good Morning America. One of the most prominent nonprofits, one of the civil rights organizations and they went to the past of things they've done. And it's absolutely true. I mean, the 60s when they fought for civil rights. But when all that started to dry up, had to keep the money flowing, right? So they started to fund these organizations. Isn't that something? Now, for a juxtaposition and how this was covered, let's go to this one.
40 years ago, the Southern Poverty Law Center bankrupted the Klan and later recovered millions from neo-Nazi groups, with lawsuits representing victims of violence. But Tuesday, the tables turned. The Justice Department charged the organization with fraud for allegedly misleading donors and lying to financial institutions by paying members of violent extremist groups millions of dollars to act as informants.
The SPLC was...
That's a different thing. You may be surprised. That was CBS, by the way. That was CBS's coverage of it last night. Juxtapose exactly how they did it. NBC, I keep on saying that. ABC, pretty predictable. One of the most prominent civil rights organizations in their past history of success and all this stuff, and they're alleged to have done, these bad things, very generic, very glossed over it. They had to cover it somehow, but that's how they glossed over it. Typical. No big surprise. CBS... that was different. They outlined all the charges and exactly what was happening against them. That was a different story. So the takeaway may be, are things changing? CBS, one of those mainstream media outlets, actually wasn't afraid to talk about the exact allegations. They went into detail about what they had been doing, how they did it, did a massive piece on it, spent a lot of media time on it last night. Are the tables turning? Maybe. They're not completely there yet, but I would take that as a good sign. The difference with CBS, little inside baseball here, is Barry Weiss is the news director now. She's fired like half of the propagandists that were working there. And all of a sudden you start to see stories where they're giving you the real deal. I don't have a lot of hope for that to happen, but it's better than it was, wasn't it? Let's get to this. Can you imagine this scenario? Because it happened. We've got a special forces soldier. I love him. unfortunately is under arrest right now. What? He's charged with being part of the Nicolas Maduro raid in Venezuela. What? What did he do? What was this? Some sort of no. He's accused of betting on it. I never even thought this would be a possibility. He bet on it, and you may be thinking, hold on to it for a second. You know, it's rattling around your head like it is mine. You may have the same question about this, about who he bet on. But let's get the details first. So the first headline came out, and it was a Special Forces soldier charged, Maduro raid, this and that. You didn't get all the details first. I'm like, well, that can't be good. That's how it was first reported, right? And then you get details about an online gambling site involved, and he placed a bet on it because he knew what was coming down. It's kind of like, I guess you would call it like a military version of insider trading. Anna Paulina Luna, the representative, she's quite a fighter these days. She's actually not afraid to tell the truth. She has a very interesting take on this entire thing, and this is what she said about it yesterday.
The DOJ just arrested a service member that was on the successful Maduro raid because, listen to this, he placed a bet on Polymarket betting for the success of the mission, meaning he bet that Maduro would be arrested. Now, here's the problem that I have with this, right? Unless he leaked classified information, I don't know that what he did was illegal. But I want to point out something. Unless the Department of Justice plans on going after every single member currently insider trading, and there's a lot of them, this is not justice. This is skewed justice. Nancy Pelosi, for example, made over 17,000% returns on her investments. She outperformed Warren Buffett. Is she facing 50 or 60 years in prison? No. She being perp walked and having press releases about her arrest? No. How about the other members of Congress? On average, 600% returns if they're individually stock trading, outperforming the S&P. You see, unless the DOJ...
She makes a good point. How can we possibly charge a soldier, a Special Forces soldier, an American hero, who was involved in a very successful raid, and he knew it was going to be successful, apparently. How can we charge him for, I guess I'm going to call it insider trading, when members of Congress do it all the time? They know what legislation's coming. They get the intel. They're on intelligence committees. They're on finance committees, and they adjust their stock portfolios. You know, like she said, Nancy Pelosi has outperformed the S&P for decades. So how can we charge this guy for knowing what was going to go down? I don't think they've ever handled something like this. Now let's get to the question we're all asking, because I'm asking it too. It's right there it's right there in my brain too. And President Trump asked the very same question just yesterday, and he brought up this same exact example I had. This is what he said when the reporter brought it up to him in the Oval Office.
But was he betting that they would get him or they wouldn't get him?
It sounds like he was betting on his removal from office, that Maduro would be removed.
Well, that's
it sounds like
interesting.
he was involved in the operation.
That's like Pete Rose betting on his own team.
I said the same thing, and I bet you probably did too. You were thinking the exact same thing. The first thing that popped up in my mind was, well, he's betting on... Hold on a minute. Isn't that he's betting on us. So, like Pete Rose, who claimed, they never proved it, ever. He claimed that I never bet against my own team, and I believe that. This soldier knew that they were going to win because he knew how well-trained his unit was. Okay, so he placed a bet that the raid would go well against Maduro. And he made a lot of money on it. Apparently he bet that, I think the bet was like $33,000 on Polymarket or something like this. If he's betting for us, should the guy be charged? I don't know about that, because if he bet against us, that would be a completely different thing, because he may be involved in the operation. He was trying to upend it, but it's a fascinating thing and how it's covered. But hey, you can't be hypocrites. How can the Department of Justice charge this guy and not charge all the insider trading that's going on in Washington? It's a fascinating question. But Trump had the exact same question that we all had. Well, was he betting on us? We'll see how that goes. Fascinating. All right, you heard a lot of this last night. If it was somewhere and you got a sports fan in your house. That's right, the NFL Draft 2026 version took place night one. Only night one, and that's relevant to the story. Massive sports media coverage. Yes, I know, and I say it all the time. Sports media is the worst media, but it's everywhere, and it's huge. You may not be into sports. You may not be into the NFL. I wouldn't really blame you, even though I am. May not be into all this stuff. Maybe you don't like ESPN or ESPN2 or, NFL Network, or all the other side things on YouTube that were covering this thing. But I'm just telling you, as far as a media outlet that will affect your life one way or another, even if you try to avoid it, you can't beat the NFL. It was said years ago that this is an organization and a company. Look at the NFL like a company that owns an entire day of the week. That would be Sunday. Well, now they own multiple days. Here's a bookkeeping event, a draft, bringing in new talent into their league that they have turned into a television event. Now it's round 1 on Thursday, tonight on Friday, 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5, and then round 6, and then it lasts 4 complete days. And let me tell you something. It gets massive, massive ratings. Had to look this up to see. Had to look up the overnight ratings because they're not completely compiled yet, but so far, a huge win for the NFL. It was even bigger than last night. So if you have a lot of people talking about it, and you're trying to avoid it, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to. A 3% increase last night for the first night. 12 to 14 million people last night watched this thing. That would be one of the biggest TV shows of the week for the draft on a Thursday night. And it's only just begun. Here's another takeaway, though. So the NFL, one of the few smart things they've done recently, they just started to take the draft to different cities. They get the cities involved there in an outside event. First time they did it was in Nashville, and it was just fantastic. Great party atmosphere. This actually is it's a great look. It's a great party atmosphere. It's a great thing. Well, last night was Pittsburgh's turn. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the good people of Pennsylvania. Hard-working people. They love football. They love their Steelers. It was just outside. They built a huge, temporary auditorium in front of the stadium. They bring all people. They have a big fan fest and all this other crap. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's one of the big deal. This is mostly about television. No. This should tell you the real popularity of this event in that town. 320,000 people were there for night 1 of the draft. 320,000 people. If you called this a concert festival, that'd be one of the biggest of all time. I think that breaks the record for the US Festival, which I think had in California in the 80s, which had, I think, the all-time attendance record. This is a third of Woodstock size. That's how big this thing was. Again, for the draft. The NFL is king. They own the media, and they own now several days of the week. So if you're into that, good. I like to watch. I watched a lot of it last night. I had to wait a long time to see where the Pats picked, but it's not going away anytime soon, guys. They own the media. All right. In fact, there's something being talked about that now in Congress about that, where the NFL, because they are so big, they're kind of strong-arming the fans, and they're putting so many of their games and events on streaming services. The FCC is actually fighting that. We'll see how it goes. I think the NFL is stronger than the FCC, to be honest with you. All right, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. As always, I go through the headlines so you can decide what's important to you in your life, and you make your own call, and you make your own decisions. That's what this is all about. It's Wicked Radio, the live stream and replay, X, YouTube, Facebook. More importantly, though, wherever you like to get your audio podcast, which is where most of you find this, it's on Apple and Spotify and iHeart and all that good stuff, and on Spreaker. Just look for Wicked Radio. You can find me, but make sure you download and share so you can know when the next episodes are coming out. Most importantly, it's Friday, and it's the weekend. Make it an awesome, awesome, safe, happy weekend. Enjoy it, and I'll talk to you Monday.